Turbo compressor surge. What is turbo compressor surge? What causes it? Is it bad? And how do we stop it? In this video, I'm going through an article that's on strikeengine.com, link in the video description. I'm going to dive into the types of compressor surge, the theories of why they happen. I'm going to give my take on the subject using the most convincing arguments I've found, and then give some methods that reduce or stop surge in my experience. Basics, first of all. There are two types of turbo compressor surge. One which happens when the throttle is closed after acceleration. And then we come on to the one which happens under full throttle acceleration. So we've got that fluttering sound of the boost coming in and out rapidly. Dealing with lift-off compressor surge, first of all, the sound is caused by air moving back or stationary at the exit of the turbo compressor wheel. Theoretically, it causes extra wear on the turbo. Some people say it's worse. Some people say it should be avoided at all costs. Others say it's no problem at all. The solution is to simply soften off the BOV so it can open faster. The BOV, dump valve, recirculating valve, whatever you call it. That flutter that we have when we change gear is happening because the BOV, the recirculating valve, is not opening enough or it's not opening fast enough. So that's lift-off compressor surge. Then we come on to full throttle compressor surge. It happens when we're asking the turbo to operate in an area that's to the left of the surge line on the turbo's compressor map. So if we look on turbo compressor map here, what we have here is airflow along the bottom and pressure ratio on the left. This is the surge line here, and when we get that sound, that surging sound, is because we're operating in this area. We're asking for too much boost at too low an airflow. Let's have a look at two YouTubers who specialize in car tech and see what they've got to say on the subject. So the two videos I found are from Kyle Engineers and High Performance Academy. Kyle Engineers, first of all, and he says it's an aerodynamic problem with the compressor blades. They are no longer operating as intended. His explanation as to why this phenomenon happens is that the pressure differential between the compressor outlet and inlet is too large. Kyle says something along the lines of, when we hear the sound, this is the pressure difference stabilizing. This I agree with. And when the pressure difference shrinks far enough, the stall stops. This is why we hear the sound coming and going. Pressure increasing, decreasing rapidly. I've linked to Kyle's video in the Strike Engine article. I agree with everything that he says. It's an aerodynamic problem with the blades. The blades no longer operating as intended, and we're getting a stall on the compressor blades. Absolutely, I agree with him 100%. Where I don't disagree with him is that it's being the cause is the pressure differential between the compressor inlet and outlet is too large. And if I just explain why, I'll come back to our turbo compressor map here. Because say at 2.5 pressure ratio, we can be in surge at 2.5. But at other times we can be in the peak efficiency window of the turbo. So it's not pressure ratio on its own that's causing the turbo surge, the stalling of the air on the compressor wheel. So it's not, in my opinion, a pressure differential that's causing the sound, the turbo surge. So that's what Kyle's got to say about it. Let's come on to High Performance Academy. I've written here, Andre at HBA puts the cause of compressor surge down to the turbo trying to feed too much air into the engine, more air than the engine can handle, and this pushes the turbo into surge. Again, I'd say I agree with that, but I think these are symptoms that he's describing, not the cause. And I say here what Andre said above doesn't explain why the turbo enters surge. Yes, we are operating to the left of the surge line, but what is the surge line? What creates a surge line? And why is the boost pressure unpredictable in surge? And I think it all comes down to airflow through the turbo, but more specifically, or more accurately I should say, I think it's down to airspeed. At lower flow rates, the slower the air is moving through the inlet. However, the more boost the turbo is making, the faster the turbo is spinning. And surge happens when you're trying to make too much boost at too low flow rate. So again, it comes back to the turbo compressor map. The lower the flow, the lower the boost we can make. If we try to make more boost at low flow, we're going to be in surge. So what is the thing that ties all this together? It's not pressure ratio on its own. It's not airflow on its own. It's not turbo RPM on its own. It's something else. So what is happening as we increase pressure and increase airflow? What is the one thing that connects all this together? And I believe it's airspeed. To solve turbo compressor surge, we need to be thinking of ways to maintain speed, airspeed, through the turbo compressor. To put it another way, surge happens when we are spinning the turbo too fast versus the speed of the air travelling through the turbo. And it is this difference in speed between the turbo compressor and the air that causes the surge, the stall, as described by Kyle and Andre. Andre actually gives a real world example of a drag racer that is running into the turbo compressor surge when they're at the launch phase, stationary, waiting for the lights to go green. And their answer is to put an additional throttle on the intercooler piping to bleed off boost to avert compressor stall. This is what they've done here. Intercooler piping. This is, and there's a drive-by-wire throttle which opens a set amount, which they've, I suppose, trial and error. How much do they need to open that blade to stop the turbo from stalling? They want to open it the minimum. They want to open this blade the minimum possible. I'll just quote from that video. What they can do here is actually bleed off some of that excess air if the turbocharger runs into the surge, so that Colin or the driver can stay at wide open throttle. That'll allow the turbocharger to come back out of surge. It can accelerate through into an RPM range where the engine can then accept all the flow from the turbo again. Bleeding off air is maintaining airspeed through the compressor. So wrapping it up, there are two types of compressor stall. There's the lift off that we hear, which is probably the most common, and then we've got the full throttle stall. Both are aerodynamic phenomenon. The actual cause of compressor stall, especially in the full throttle, is not understood completely. I link here to a science article. Quoting from that article, it says, "Good progress can be reported, but the paper will not be an unrestricted celebration of our success, because after 75 years of research, we are still unable to predict the stalling behavior of a new compressor or contribute much to the design of a more stall resistant machine." So this is the state of the art at the moment. There is still a bit of mystery surrounding it. And then last point, general consensus is surge is caused by the engine being supplied with too much air. Yes, this is true, but why is too much air a problem? What makes the air too much? And I write here, in my opinion, because airspeed drops too far versus the speed of the compressor wheel. And this is what creates that stalling on the blades of the compressor wheel. So solutions. For full throttle compressor surge is a bit harder. Different cars will have it at different times. But basically, we just need to increase the speed of the air through the turbo when we are encountering turbo surge. So that could be at the start line for a launch, or it could be at a specific RPM above a certain boost. We can do that with that drive-by-wire throttle on the intercoolant piping, and I suppose that might be the ideal way to do it. Or we can, if it's possible, electronically open our BOV, our recirculating valve, our dump valve, lift off turbo flutter, like the most common one that we hear. We just need to open the BOV, the recirculating valve, more when we are changing gear, lifting off the throttle, be it if it's an adjustable BOV, adjusting it softer, putting a softer spring in it, or fitting a bigger BOV. Hopefully you found it informative. If you did, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, look after yourself, and I'll see you again in the next video.